Hi, this is Deirdre from University College Cork in the Disability Support Service, and in this video we're going to go through the Disability Access Route to Education, the DARE scheme. So before we go into the nuts and bolts of the DARE scheme, I wanted to outline the different colleges and universities and institutes of technology that are currently taking part in the DARE scheme. So you can pause the video here and look down through the list of colleges outlined on the map in front of you to see which colleges currently partake in the DARE scheme. So DARE, D-A-R-E, stands for the Disability Access Route to Education, which is a third-level alternative admissions course for school leavers whose disability has had a negative impact on their second-level education. DARE can offer reduced points places to those school leavers who, as a result of having their disability or a learning difficulty or a significant ongoing illness, that they've experienced extra educational challenges coming up through their second level education. If you're wondering, should you apply? You should apply if your disability has had a negative impact on your educational performance in school, and you're worried that you won't meet the points requirements for your preferred course due to the impact of your disability. And you can apply if you're under 23 years of age, as at the 1st of January in the year you're applying. There are a wide range of disabilities that are eligible for consideration under the DARE scheme, and they're listed here. Pause the video here to have a look down through them. And I need to add, there's a lot more information available on the accesscollege.ie website that I will be referring to a lot in this video. So to be eligible for the DARE scheme, you've got to provide evidence of your disability's negative impact on your education that meet the educational impact criteria for DARE. You've got to provide evidence verifying your diagnosis, your disability, your learning difficulty, your significant ongoing illness that meets the DARE eligibility criteria. And if you provide evidence for both of those that meet the DARE criteria, you could be considered DARE eligible. But you must meet both the DARE educational impact criteria and the DARE evidence of disability criteria. The evidence of your educational impact will be provided in an educational impact statement from the school. So that educational impact, if you're not sure what that means, we have it broken down into 6 categories under which you can prove impact. The first one would be, have you received intervention or supports in post-primary school? That could be, have you had exam accommodations, spelling and grammar waivers, resource hours, assistive technology. Your school will have evidence of that, and that will be evidence that will form part of your educational impact statement, providing evidence of your disability's negative impact on your education. Has it impacted on your attendance or regularly disrupted your school day? So a student perhaps who has a significant ongoing illness may be absent from school a lot, and that will be reflected in the records, or may have needed to go to various hospital appointments, or had parts of the day where because of their illness it disrupted their school day. There is evidence in the school records of that, and you need to gather that together to form part of your educational impact statement if it applies to you. Has it affected your school experience and well-being? Has it impacted on your learning or your exam results? Has it caused any other educational impact that isn't included in the 4 previous points? And for students with specific learning difficulties, is it severely impacting your literacy or numeracy skills, and getting evidence for that from your school to form part of your educational impact statement? So the benefits of DARE would be that you could get into college on reduced points. So if a leaving cert points for a course is 366 points, an eligible DARE applicant could possibly be offered a place with lower points of perhaps 356. That's just an example That's not giving an outline of points reductions. Very, very, very importantly, an applicant must meet the entry and programme requirements for a specific course to be considered for the DARE reduced points offer on that course. So if a course says you have to have French, if a course says you have to have a certain level of maths, DARE will not have any impact on that. You must meet that entry or programme requirements for the course to be considered for that DARE reduced points offer. So the burning question every year is how many points less, or what percentage of points less. The amount of points a particular course will be reduced by is dependent on 3 factors: the overall number of places on the course, the number of reserved DARE places on that course, and then the number of DARE eligible applicants who are competing for those DARE reserved places. And because those 3 factors change from year to year, the reduction in points for DARE places can vary from year to year. So, for example, if there was 100 places in a first year course, in UCC we set aside 5% of those places for DARE eligible applicants. So there are 5 places set aside for students who are DARE eligible on that course. If 7 students who are DARE eligible, who meet all the DARE criteria with their evidence of their disability and evidence of the negative impact it's had on their education, if 7 students who are DARE eligible applied for that course and didn't get the points they required, then that 7 students who are DARE eligible are competing for those 5 places. And the top 5, points-wise, of those students will get those DARE places. Equally, if there was 10 students, it would be the top 5 of those 10 DARE eligible students that would get the DARE places. So it's still a competition based on points, but at least you're competing with people who have also had that extra additional challenge coming up through the school system. Extremely importantly, you do not have to be a DARE eligible applicant to get support in college. I know people are very concerned when somebody actually gets the points that they require for a course and they get in, and they go, oh no, they're not a DARE student now, does that mean they're getting no supports? That's not the case. To get supports, you need to be able to provide evidence of your diagnosis, and then a needs assessment will be conducted to identify your specific support requirements. So it's not the case that just DARE students get support in college. How do you go about applying? Your steps are that you have to apply to the CAO by the 1st of February. Go through your DARE handbook with your parents or guardians. Make sure you complete Section A of the Supplementary Information Form and apply to DARE by answering yes to question 1 by March the 1st. So in your CAO application, it'll be asked, would you like to be considered under the DARE scheme? It is crucially important that you say yes to question 1 by the 1st of March. You need to start gathering your documentation in a timely fashion. So your evidence of your disability and your evidence of its negative impact on your education. You have to have documentation for those, and it can take some time and some effort to gather that data together. So start working on that earlier rather than later. And you've got to submit your educational impact statement and your evidence of disability to the CAO by the 15th of March. And those dates are really, really important. So on the supplementary information form, it has 3 sections. Section A is your applicant information form, and it must be completed by you by the 1st of March. Importantly, that you answer yes to question 1, that you want to apply to the DARE scheme, and fully complete questions 1 to 5. Now, this section here applies to some students who were considered DARE eligible a year ago and they're carrying their DARE eligibility forward 12 months. That's the maximum you can carry it forward, but those students can answer yes to question 1B to apply to carry forward their DARE eligibility. Section B is your educational impact statement. That's a school statement completed by your school to give evidence of the negative impact of your disability on your education. and that needs to go to the CAO by the 15th of March. And section C is your evidence of disability, completed by the appropriate professional, depending on your diagnosis, and sent to the CAO by the 15th of March. So your educational impact statement gives us information on how your disability has impacted on your second level education. You download the form. There is an applicant checklist that you need to complete with your school. And depending on your responses to that applicant checklist, your school will complete the rest following on from the natures of your responses on the checklist, because it's different evidence, different types of evidence depending on what your diagnosis is and how it has impacted on your school going. Section B, the educational impact statement, must be completed by either your guidance counsellor, your learning support teacher, your year head, your visiting teacher, or your deputy principal. The visiting teacher applies to students who are blind or vision impaired or deaf or hard of hearing. It depends on the school as to who has responsibility for pulling together that educational impact statement. And again, get to them good and early to give them time to gather all of your information together. This form must be signed and stamped by the school principal or deputy principal and returned to the CAO by the 15th of March. Section C is your evidence of disability, and it provides verification of your disability and gives us some information as to the kind of third level supports that you might require. You can provide an existing report, so your original diagnosis, your original assessment, or you can complete section C, the evidence of disability form, and get that form completed, signed and stamped by the appropriate professional. I'll show you where to find the appropriate professional on the DARE website in a second. So it must be completed, signed and stamped by the appropriate professional, or the form must be accompanied by their business card or headed paper. Those students with a specific learning difficulty are asked to provide a full psychological assessment of any age, completed by an appropriately qualified psychologist, instead of the section C evidence of disability form. Now, for some people, say that had a diagnosis from a specialist or a consultant, your GP may have that on file and may be in a position to complete section C of your evidence of disability form if they have the appropriate information on file from the original consultant or specialist. For some diagnosis, for students with ADD or ADHD, attention deficit disorder or attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, for students with a mental health condition, or for students with a significant ongoing illness, the age of report is important. So those students applying under those categories must provide a report that is less than 3 years old. For those with specific learning difficulties, including dyslexia and dyscalculia, you must provide a full psychological assessment report of any age completed by the appropriately qualified psychologist, and you must have 2 literacy or numeracy scores at or below the 10th percentile. These attainment scores can be from 1 or from a combination of the following sources, either from sources from school-based attainment tests or from the attainment tests carried out by the original psychologist who gave the diagnosis. This is really important. There are time limits applying to the date of this testing. It is essential to check the accesscollege.ie DARE website for the dates of testing that will be acceptable under the DARE scheme. For your section on providing evidence of your disability, you can go to the accesscollege.ie DARE website because different diagnoses require evidence from different professionals. So I can click on the link, but I'd like to show you just how to access that. So simply I go into Google and I'm going to type the DARE scheme. Of course I can't spell. So the DARE scheme, I click on dareaccesscollege.ie and this takes us directly to the DARE website. Okay. So there's a wealth of information really clearly presented on the accesscollege.ie website, some important dates coming up, but I'd like you to scroll down to the bottom where all of the areas of the website are laid out. And the important one we're looking at right now is providing evidence for your disability just here. So when we go into the section of the DARE website on providing evidence of your disability, it's going to outline, gives some general information here, but on the right hand side it goes down through all the different categories of disability that are eligible for consideration under the DARE scheme. So if I click on the first category, autistic spectrum disorder, it will outline who the appropriate professional is that can give the diagnosis to meet the DARE criteria, the type of documentation that is required, any information around the age of report if relevant, and it goes down through each of these for each condition. So if I go into, say, dyspraxia DCD, again, the appropriate professional who can give the diagnosis to meet the DARE criteria, the type of documentation, the required age of the report. So you will find your diagnosis here and you can click on it and find out who you need to provide your verification of your diagnosis from, what the type of documentation is, whether there's an age requirement, what that age requirement of the report is. So that's really important to those sections of the website. And it's clearly laid out in the accesscollege.ie DARE website. So a couple of tips. Go through the DARE handbook. You may get a hard copy of it from school. If not, there is a copy of the handbook in the accesscollege.ie website. Go through it carefully with your parents or guardians. Be sure to say yes to question 1 on the supplementary information form. Make sure you speak to your teacher early about the educational impact statement so they have time to gather that information together. Excuse me. Request the required supporting documentation early. Send good copies of all of the pages of the documentation required and submit all the supporting documents requested. And keep proof of postage. So you can send it registered post and keeping proof of your postage. Those deadlines that I outlined previously are really important. And again, I'm going to show you on the accesscollege.ie website where you can see the timeline. So let's go back into this is the DARE website again. I scroll right down to the bottom and there is the application timeline here. And it literally takes you gradually through the different stages that you have to, the deadlines that you have to meet for your application. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation. The DARE and HERE timelines. So the DARE and HERE application closing date is on the 1st of March. You've got to support the documents by the 15th of March at the latest. You will be notified whether you are DARE eligible in late June. If you are told that you're not eligible, it will be made clear why you're not eligible. It could be something simple like you neglected to have a form stamped or something. There is a period of time within which you can review and appeal your eligibility status. In August, the HERE and DARE offers will go out and college orientation is in late August or early September. So submit it, check it and send it is our checklist for the HERE and DARE application schemes. Importantly, people think I can only apply to the DARE scheme or the HERE scheme. If a student has a disability that has had a negative impact on their education coming up through school, and they come from a disadvantaged area by means of socio or economically disadvantaged background, and can provide evidence of that meets the HERE criteria, it's pulling together a good bit of documentation. But if you can apply to both and you qualify under both, you will be prioritised by colleges when allocating those reduced points places, because you've been doubly disadvantaged coming up through the education system. Applying for a grant and the money for college, just to be really clear, DARE has nothing to do with the SUSI grant, but if you apply to DARE, you should also apply to SUSI if you think you may be eligible. And I think it would be really important to check out the SUSI website, www.susi.ie, and there's a little formula there to see if you're eligible. I think just check out the SUSI website for the eligibility reckoner there to see if you're possibly eligible, and apply to SUSI. But SUSI and DARE are entirely separate. So for further information on the DARE scheme or on the HERE scheme, check out that accesscollege.ie website. I've shown you a little bit about how to navigate around it. The DARE application outcome usually is coming out from the 22nd of June. Log into your CAO application to view your DARE application outcome. And just a small bit of information on UCC now. Last year, in the year 2020 to 21, we had over 1,673 students registered with the Disability Support Service. And you can see it's broken down here into the categories of students who are vision impaired, students who are deaf or hard of hearing, students who have a physical disability, those students with specific learning difficulties, students with ADD or ADHD, students on the autistic spectrum, students with significant ongoing illnesses, students with a mental health difficulty diagnosed by a psychiatrist, and those students with neurological difficulties like epilepsy. And you can see there's a broad range of students currently studying in UCC with those various different challenges. When you come to UCC and register with the Disability Support Service, you will meet with an advisor who will go through a one-to-one needs assessment with you, and then reasonable accommodations are identified for each student based on that needs assessment and the medical verification. They can include, but this depends on the needs assessment, so they can include lecture capture, so where a lecture would be recorded that you could view it back later, alternative exam arrangements, whether mobility or various factors in the needs assessment might say that student needs an alternative exam arrangement, assistive technology, mobility training, supports maybe while on work placement or work experience, and specialist career guidance service for when you're going out the other end of college and getting ready for going into the workforce. And for some students with specific learning difficulties, there are some learning support for those students. Some other very important websites to have a look at are the cao.ie website, the SUSI website, and the qualifax.ie website. I would suggest that you follow accesscollege.ie on your social media, because they give notifications reminding people about deadlines that are very, very important. And if you have any further queries while you're making your DARE application, please email us at dare@ucc.ie, and we will reply to your query via email as soon as possible. Thanks a million for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.